where do you think the organization sees as the number one problem with why the offense is just, call a spade, it's just not good?
Well, it'd be disappointing if they considered it one piece, because then they'd be wrong, and then they'd be, but ultimately that's what they're going to do. But that's about not necessarily a belief. That's about, all right, we have to do something, and so's got to be scapegoated to satisfy the masses, basically, is what it is.
And welcome in, everybody, to a Wednesday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, Johnny Mac, John McMullen. Our last show of the week, I guess not our last show of the week, but we will have off tomorrow for Thanksgiving, everybody. So our final show, I guess, leading into the game, and then we will have game day content for you on Football Friday. Johnny Mac, how you doing on this Wednesday morning, my friend?
Shut up. No, I'm getting it out of the way.
John, you went viral yesterday, my friend.
Yeah, not proud of it, but hey, it happens. But yeah, I think people are making too big of a deal of it. But yeah, a little dust up.
I don't want to make you speak out of line, but I'll speak my thought on it. I love it, Johnny Mac. Well done by you. You put your foot down out there. You defend yourself as you should. Well done, Johnny Mac. I want to thank everybody for being here this morning. Good to have everybody in here. I hope everybody has an awesome Thanksgiving. John, I hope you have a great Thanksgiving as well. We got the Black Friday game, so we will talk about that on Football Friday, and we will also get to Mike Gill this morning. No BLG. He's on a little vacation for the holiday, but we will talk to Mike Gill coming up in a little bit. John, let's dive into the updates yesterday down at NovaCare. Jalen spoke. The coordinator spoke with Vic Fangio, with Kevin Patullo. Jalen Hurts spoke, and then some injury updates as well. We'll start on the injury front, Johnny Mac. What's the update there? You said it's good news for the Eagles.
Well, for the most part, I mean, there's some good, there's some bad, but I think, when we came into this short week, the presumption from most of us was that they're probably going to be down 3 starters in the secondary, and all of a sudden it's only going to be one, at least if things go well today for Reed Blankenship. Drew McCuba is obviously going to be out potentially for the season, and Adoree Jackson, we all thought, well, he's in the protocol. Well, turns out he's not in the protocol.
So what happened there? Like, why did?
Well, he got evaluated for a concussion during the game and was cleared, and the Eagles kept him out as a precautionary measure. And so when a player, when it's announced they have a head injury, they're getting evaluated for concussion. When they're ruled out, right, 99% of the time they're put in the concussion protocol. They're basically diagnosed that they have a concussion. In the case of Adoree, that is not what happened. So it is curious. They want the, maybe thinking things were in control. I don't know why they were so cautious with it, but
so he cleared protocol and then never went back into the game. Am I understanding that right?
Correct.
So it's kind of I guess you don't want to call it a benching because he did get banged up, but they didn't put him back in the game and he was cleared to go back into the game. So they just opted to not put him back in for whatever.
Exactly. But I don't think it was a benching. I think it was more precautionary for, just because he got banged up and he shaken up, whatever. But never went into. So if you're in that concussion protocol, bottom line is you're not getting out of it for a Friday game. There's just not enough time to go through all the stages. So the thought was that he was not going to play in this upcoming game, but it turns out he was never put in the protocol. So he was a full participant in practice, and now he's expected to play, and that's good news, because you had what are you going to do? Was the talk with 3 starters down. Well, now, Reed's the plan for Reed is to play. The plan for Adoree is to play. So you have.
So that is, that's good news considering what we were thinking coming in.
Exactly. So all the only difference is you got Sidney Brown stepping in for Drew McCuba, which, starter's a starter for a reason, but
Yeah.
that's a heck of a lot better than if you're moving parts and you're moving Michael Carter to safety and all of those guys can't play. So much better scenario from that standpoint, and now all of a sudden, they're limited. They're going to play.
Yeah, the Devontae, the Saquon, that stuff is probably more short week, just management, correct?
I would think. Well, Devontae, and yesterday was a walkthrough, so it's all
Right.
estimation. But
Estimated, got it.
for Devontae, it's a little bit more concerning. Shoulder and a chest. They labeled it as he was estimated as a non-participant, whereas Saquon was limited with a groin, and you can see them trying to manage him through a short week. And maybe that opens the door to give Tank Bigsby a few more runs, which everybody seems to be excited to see. But I do expect him to play. Lane Dickerson is also limited as he goes through his assortment of issues. Now it's back to the knee. It's always funny what they list Landon as, because
I know it could literally be anything.
yeah. So the knee seems to be more of what he's dealing with this week. And, the one guy, Brandon Graham, popped up as a groin. Now he's not been playing much. It doesn't surprise me. Retirement coming back,
Yeah,
have a
right.
groin issue. So I would lean kind of negative on him. And then Xavier Gibson was pretty banged up, had a sling. So I don't think he's going to play
Yeah.
after making pretty significant mistake in Dallas but boy, he caught the football, and that was the mistake where he caught the football. And then it looked like, all right, well, at least he's making something of it. And that Cowboys kid, boy, he made a play on that. That
Great
was a
effort
heck
by
of a hit.
after getting demolished by Sidney
Yeah.
Brown, getting blocked up going up the field, he
Yeah.
still made the play. That was well done by him.
Really was. So I don't think he's going to play. So he might be back to Jahan Dotson returning punts, which is, he's going to.
I guess Britton Covey's just out of the picture, huh?
Well, I mean, he's on the practice squad. He's available. They could, bring him up if they're that concerned about it. But it
I just
doesn't
remember he
seem.
was like pretty decent at the punt. You know what I mean? Like
It was good. He led the NFL in punt
yeah, that's what I
return
mean.
yards as a
Didn't always
second.
look pretty, but he got the job done.
Well, we talked to Michael Clay yesterday off camera because it was a busy day because it's a short week, so guys only had short windows of time.
Yeah, right.
And I asked him about Britton, and it certainly didn't seem like he was in the equation to get elevated, but you never know. But
Yeah.
I would doubt it.
John, last one here on the injury report I want to get to here is Lane Johnson. I assume he's not going to play, but just what's the update with him? Like they never put him on IR. We kind of thought it was going to be a 4 to 6 week period, which would assume you might drop him on IR, open up a roster spot. They never did that. He's still listed on the injury report with the foot. It's a DNP. Is that just kind of hoping Lane might come back before 4 weeks? I know there's some optimism there that it wasn't as bad as we originally thought. What's the update, or what do you know about Lane Johnson, if anything?
Yeah, well, the hope is, anytime you don't put somebody like that on injured reserve. Now, there's two parts to that. You have to have more spaces designated to return, and there's a bunch of them now, so there's no concern there. So they could place him on IR. But anytime you don't, that means you think he has a chance to come back before that fourth game. So I would circle Las Vegas. And then on the schedule, and then the last part to that is he's the type of player that if he doesn't make it, you don't mind carrying him on the back end of the roster because you have game day inactives anyway, so you don't mind carrying him. So the hope is he's able to return before that fourth game. Touch and go, I would say, even with a sprain, Liz Frank, but obviously tough dude. Wouldn't bet against him.
Yeah.
And they think he has an opportunity to make it back. But if he doesn't, the good news is no surgery, and he will be back at some point.
Yep, good news there, John. Game coming up on Friday. It's a 3 p.m. game on Amazon Prime. All right, so we'll have that on Football Friday. It is at home, so it's in Philadelphia. If anybody's going to the game, let me know in the chat. I'll give you a little shout out. I always like to see people who go to these games, the holiday games and stuff like that. And a Friday, John, you don't play many games on Friday. That was pretty funny. Vic got asked, when's the last Friday game? I think McLean was trying to get him to go back to high school. And he's like, 2 years ago.
Well, the funny thing is, Vic got that wrong. The Friday game that the opener in Brazil was on Friday.
Oh,
so
right.
He's played Friday 2 years in a row.
That's right.
This will be 3 years in a row.
That's right. I forgot about the Friday opener. The Friday
That's
opener
crazy,
in Brazil.
by the way. But yeah, your presumption is, and I don't blame Jeff because it's like nobody plays on Friday. But now they have that, they start on Thursday. Now they have the Brazil game on Friday at the beginning of the season. So, yeah, it's becoming more prevalent, which is no surprise because it's all a money grab.
Yeah, right. John, good stuff, man. I got some good questions here. We're going to have an open up hour number 2. We'll have some fun topics for Thanksgiving tomorrow. We'll take some super chats from the great people of JAKIB Nation. John, I want to ask you a general question, and you can shoot this down if you think I'm off based on it. I'm noticing just from the tea leaves around those who cover the team, all the other guys on the beat, many of the guys who have been around for a long time who are connected to people inside the organization. I'm noticing based on some of the narratives that people are saying that the Eagles front office they are very unhappy with this offense, despite all of the winning. Now, if they go the distance, I'm sure it will be okay, but it feels like they are unhappy. You hear guys like D-Gun bring up some stuff about Jalen Hurts. I was listening to Jeff McLean's podcast yesterday with Mike Sealski. He said some similar things about how the limitations of the passing game are becoming more of an issue for the offense. Obviously, we've spoken at length about Jalen Hurts. We do it basically daily. He's the quarterback of the team that we cover. You hear Hugh Douglas bringing stuff up. I don't know, John. A lot of these guys are pretty well connected. They've been around for a long time. I think fans think that they make a lot of shit up. I don't really think that's how it goes. I think when people hear things, they get information, that's when they start to maybe leak some of that stuff out. Am I way off on the tea leaves? How do you see it? What do you make of, what the organization thinks of this offense, of this quarterback, of this coaching staff, of everything that's going on? Because despite what we say about maybe we've overrated them, I think the expectation from the people that matters is higher than this.
Well, sure. I mean, the expectations are off the charts. I mean, from the organization, they expect to win. There's no doubt about that. I mean, they've a long history of now, really since Super Bowl 52 of any time reaching, not terribly long, but since they've become a top tier team. When they don't reach them, they're going to scapegoat people. And that's, let's be honest, that's Jeffrey. But no, D-Gun's not making stuff up. Jeff's not making stuff up. So anybody who thinks that is nuts. If you listen to this show, you hear similar things every day. We talk about it every day.
Right.
It's not coming out of thin air. So there's issues. The problem is, what do you want to be? And all those discussions, all those wide-ranging discussions we've had, be careful what you wish for. They found a formula for success. I can tell you Nick Sirianni believes his job is dependent on winning, which is, seems like common sense.
Right.
And his goal is to win every game. And this is his plan, that this is the best way for us to win under the rosters that he had, the roster that he has. This is the best way to win. And I disagreed with it at the start back in week 5 last year when they made the dramatic shift. I said, this is too far. They've gone too far. But they won. Right. And I think, obviously that builds a sense of hey, I told you so, whatever you want to call it, entitlement, whatever. And they did. I mean, there's nothing you can't argue. They won. And when they needed the passing game, it did show up at least a little bit in against Washington and in the Super Bowl. Now they got plenty of help
Yeah,
from
sure did.
the crutches of the team, which were the defense and the running game. And now that they have the running game has gone away for multiple reasons, and the defense is not quite as good, even with the little spike over the entire season. The defense hasn't been as good.
Right.
So now you have more of these games where it's tough. And they still win more than they lose by significant. They got the second best record in the NFC coming in the last week. They were the number 1 seed in the NFC. They were
Right.
the number 2 seed when they won the Super Bowl last year. So it's not like that's the tough part. Like if it's, if you're underwater, under 500, if you're really struggling, then it's easy to say, all right, we got to change. But when you're 8-3, it's not as easy. And the second part of that is, which I think way too many people don't understand, is you kind of saw it in a micro standpoint with the Cowboys 5-man fronts, all that disconnect of, well, before Quentin Williams, they never used it. Now that they got Quentin, but it was only one game. How much could you factor that in? Yada, yada, yada. And everybody from Landon Dickerson to Kevin Patullo yesterday, I asked him yesterday, to Nick Sirianni, said the same thing, which is, look, this time of year, you don't have a lot of reps. You don't have, so you're sort of playing the analytics game. Well, this is what they do. This is what we're betting they're going to do. And then you have the Super Bowl champions and unscattered looks, and everybody's giving you the best shot, and yada, yada, yada. All these explanations. Like to assume in week 13 that you're going to just strip it down to its studs and go, all right, this didn't work, and we're going to do this. It just doesn't work that way. Now,
Right.
and then where I've heard from some people, and to a certain degree, they did shift in leading up to Super Bowl 52, because people kind of forget that, Nick Foles, when he came in originally, wasn't very good in the regular season. And Doug Peterson pretty much told John DeFilippo and Frank Reich to scale it back and do what he's comfortable with. And they did a bunch of RPO stuff, which is really run pass option. But those mechanics where Nick was comfortable with, because that's what he did a lot, and it turned out to work. But again, that's scaling back. That's not evolving.
That's what I mean. And my question then, on top of what you just said, would be, where do you think the organization, and when I say organization, I mean the decision makers in the building, Jeffrey Lurie, Howie, Roseman, people like that, how do they see the offense in terms of, do they think the offense is not good because of the philosophy and they blame Nick for that and they think it's unfair, perhaps like you? Do they put it on the quarterback, who they are understanding that the coaches have tailored the philosophy around the quarterback? Do they put it on Kevin Patullo because they think he's an inexperienced play caller, not getting the job done, and somebody that Nick wanted to promote? Where do you think the organization sees as the number one problem with why the offense is just, call a spade, it's just not good?
Well, it'd be disappointing if they considered it one piece, because then they'd be wrong, and then they'd be, but ultimately that's what they're going to do. But that's about not necessarily a belief. That's about, all right, we have to do something, and so-and-so's got to be, scapegoated to satisfy the masses, basically, is what it is. Unfortunately, that's the way the NFL works, not just in Philadelphia, but everywhere. But I do think the Eagles, if they wanted to have the ability to be more patient, probably should be more patient. But and Nick talks about this all the time. it's almost like a human desire that you want to blame one thing. And like the running game, if we talk about the running game, it's part Saquon, it's part offensive line, it's part scheme,
Yeah, but
it's
here's the
part.
thing with the run game that I think is interesting. I think coming into becoming a running team, the Eagles knew that this wasn't a long-term thing. That's why they never tried to build for it in the first place. This team has always tried to be a high-flying passing attack because in their belief, they've always thought that was the best way to have a long-term sustained success on offense. Now, they went to the running game last year to their
That's
credit.
Jeffrey's belief.
Well, that's what I mean. So I think Jeffrey believes, oh, yeah, I'm not surprised. The running game's not working as well as it did a year ago, So that's where I'm like, what does he think about, do we have to change offense? Does he think Nick is being unfair to Jalen and he wants to, maybe let Jalen get the straitjacket off? Or does Jeffrey see it as the quarterback is the quarterback and they've built the offense around him and maybe that's a bigger problem? I think you're right about it. It's never one thing. I mean, it's football. We're not talking about, it's football.
Well, it's never one thing, and that's why you don't. And if you were to line up the 32 owners or the 30 people in charge of the different organization, I would certainly put Jeffrey Lurie near the top of the list when it comes to football intelligence. However, that's at the bottom of the list when it comes to executives and coaches and actual football people. So, the last thing you want is an owner like Jerry Jones who thinks he knows more than he does, and wants to go in that direction. But at the end of the day, it's their team and they can do what they want to do.
Yeah, right.
And that's what happened. That's what happened in the past. Look, Doug Peterson didn't want to move on from Mike Rowe. What, nobody cares, but yeah, people talk about continuity and then they don't want the guy to learn and have any continuity. Same thing with Press Taylor. Same thing with uh, Brian Johnson. It's you know is continuity better? Probably. Yeah. Are they all now? There are different. Like Sean Desai, I think everything is contextual. Like Sean Desai was pretty clear the job was too big for him. I still don't think they should have demoted him in season, but that's something you do in the off season, and you got to move on. You hire the head coach for a reason. And if the head coach wants to move forward with a particular offensive coordinator or a defensive coordinator or what have you, you should let him have that rope. And if he doesn't have that rope, if you don't want him to have that rope, you should fire him. Bottom line.
Yeah. Makes sense.
But from the standpoint of boiling it down, it never works because it's never one person. It's never one person. But one person has to pay, or two, usually a couple scapegoats. It was Brian, it was Alex Tanney as well, when he left. And if you look, it's always funny because if you look at where like Alex Tanney went, it was with Shane Steichen. Like they didn't dislike Alex Tanney. Well, Nick, I'm talking about the coaching staff.
Yeah. I bet you if Kevin Patullo gets scapegoated, he'll be back with Kellen Moore. It would be my guess.
Or Shane.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he won't
They were
be
buddies, though, weren't they? Him and Kellen Moore, they built a relationship.
Well, they built a really close relationship when he was here. But remember, Kellen wasn't here that long. Shane was here longer and longer term with that group. But so yeah, I would expect him to land in one of those two spots. But and hopefully he can save his job. But yeah, there's no doubt about it. There's 6 games left and whatever postseason run they have. And he's, performing, coaching, whatever you want to call it, for his job. So, I mean, that's just the way the Eagles are. The expectations are off the charts.
I wonder how bad it would have to be for there to be a scapegoat. Like if they go to the conference finals, conference championship game, I don't think there would be. Now, if they got bounced in the wild card or in the divisional, is that enough to do it?
Well, I think it depends. If you get bounced, like say you get bounced in the NFC Championship game, but you lose 23-3, I think
that might be
Yeah, so I think it always depends on the circumstance. Like going down to Tampa for that playoff game a couple of years ago.
You always tell the story. I remember.
Yeah, I was laughing at people. No, Nick Sirianni's not going to get fired, but it was so ugly. And I was sitting because of the Tampa Bay older stadium. Some of the execs sit right behind us. Like we're in the first row. They were in the second. They're in the second row in Tampa. And I heard pretty high up what my, executives say, this is fucking embarrassing. And at that point, I'm like, oh boy.
Oh, yeah, right. Could be something here. Let's rattle through a couple supers. We got Mike Gill coming up in a couple seconds here on Birds 365. BGG says, happy Thanksgiving, Zander, John, and Jacob fam. Happy Thanksgiving, Bird Gang Girl. Appreciate that. Jeff Bone, same thing. Happy Turkey Day, Johnny Mac and Z. Happy Turkey Day, Jeff Bone. Appreciate you, brother. Here's Rich Nutt. What's up, Rich? Happy Thanksgiving, J Mac Z. Whole Jacob fam. Blessings to all. Rich, thank you, brother. Appreciate you, man. Happy Thanksgiving. Here's Zeal, John. This is for you. J Mac, you may be the miserable uncle that we argue with at the Thanksgiving table, but you're still our uncle. We support you. Have a happy Thanksgiving. Look at
that. I am shockingly not miserable.
Yeah, you don't strike me as miserable at all.
No. Pretty happy-go-lucky. Like to crack jokes, if you ask people. Yes, your Ed Kratz's, your Martin Franks. People.
Yeah, I can see that. Just don't ask Rube. Here's Dank. When are we getting our Johnny Mac versus Rube match?
Yeah. Well, yeah. It is what it is. Should have done it off camera. That's my only regret. But it had to be done.
Yeah, good. I'm happy you put your foot down.